Earth does not become unreal through beauty alone. It becomes unreal at the moment beauty stops being available on human terms. From a distance, the planet appears generous. Color spreads freely. Landscapes open outward. Mountains rise. Oceans extend. Cities settle into valleys as if space were infinite. At first glance, everything feels reachable, meant to be seen, crossed, inhabited. But that impression does not last. Move closer, and a pattern begins to emerge. Certain places narrow movement instead of inviting it. Others demand precise timing, strict behavior, or physical sacrifice. Some allow entry only briefly, then push back with heat, altitude, chemistry, or silence. These are not accidents of terrain. They are boundaries quiet, persistent, and non-negotiable. What makes these places feel unreal is not scale or color, it is restraint. They do not reveal themselves all at once. They require approach. They impose conditions. And with each step deeper into the landscape, the rules become clearer. Comfort disappears first. Then orientation. Then safety. Eventually, even survival becomes conditional. This journey follows that progression. Not as a tour of famous landmarks, but as a descent through layers of access, from places shaped to coexist with humans, to environments that tolerate us only briefly, and finally, to regions that were never meant to include us at all. Here, beauty is not a reward, it is a consequence of pressure, time, fracture, heat, cold, motion, and absence. The planet does not perform for observers. It continues its processes whether anyone is present or not, and in those processes, Earth draws lines. Lines between land and water, between life and chemistry, between what can be entered and what can only be approached. To cross these landscapes is not to conquer them, it is to recognize where access ends. Because the most unreal places on Earth are not the ones that look impossible. They are the ones that quietly remind us we were never meant to stay. Bali does not reveal itself as a destination. It functions as a system. From the air, the island looks lush and open. terraced hills, volcanic ridges, villages woven into green valleys. At ground level, movement feels easy, roads are busy, beaches are accessible. Nothing immediately signals restriction. Yet beneath that accessibility lies a structure far older and far stricter than tourism. Bali is governed by ritual. More than 2,000 temples are scattered across the island, but their significance is not architectural. Each temple marks a point in a living network that connects land, water, family, and time. In most households, a small shrine stands in the courtyard. Offerings are placed daily. Incense burns not as ceremony, but as routine. Ritual here is not reserved for special occasions. It regulates ordinary life. Days are shaped around prayer schedules. Streets pause for processions. Motorbikes stop without complaint. Businesses close when ceremonies begin. Even traffic yields to offerings placed directly on the road. Small woven trays filled with flowers, rice, and incense. Stepping over them is avoided. Stepping on them is unthinkable. What makes Bali distinct is not belief alone, but consistency. Ritual does not interrupt daily life. It is daily life. The island operates on a rhythm where human activity adjusts to spiritual obligation, not the other way around. Time here is not linear or accelerated. It cycles. Water follows the same logic. The famous rice terraces are not arranged for beauty. They are engineered through the Subak system, a centuries-old communal irrigation network guided by temples rather than authorities. Water is released and withheld according to ritual calendars. No farmer controls it alone. Balance is maintained through shared dependence. This creates an unusual form of restraint. The land is productive, but only as long as cooperation holds. Tourism is welcome, but only within invisible boundaries. Visitors can move freely, yet the island never fully yields control. Certain behaviors are expected. Certain spaces require dress, silence, or removal of shoes. Sacred zones exist everywhere, often unmarked to outsiders. Bali does not prohibit entry, it conditions it. Those who ignore the rules are rarely confronted. Instead, they feel subtly out of place, out of rhythm with the island's timing. Movement becomes awkward, presence feels temporary. In the context of this journey, Bali represents the first boundary. The environment is human-scaled, fertile, and accessible. Danger is minimal. Survival is easy, yet freedom is not absolute. Beauty here exists within order, sustained by repetition and restraint. Bali shows that a place does not need cliffs, ice, or altitude to draw limits. Sometimes, the strongest boundaries are cultural, quietly enforced, continuously practiced, and older than memory. Here, Earth's unreal quality does not come from extremes. It comes from a simple rule: you may enter, but only on its terms. At first glance, the Tegalalang rice terraces appear effortless. Layers of green step downward along the hillside, curving gently with the land. Water glints between rows of rice. The scene feels calm, balanced, almost decorative. It is often photographed as landscape. But Tegalalang is not a view. It is an operating system. Every terrace here exists because of Subak, a communal irrigation network developed more than 1,000 years ago. This system does not prioritize speed, yield, or individual ownership. It prioritizes balance. Water is treated as a shared force, not a private resource. The source begins high in the mountains. Volcanic springs feed rivers, which are diverted into channels carved by hand. From there, water flows downward through a precise sequence of gates, tunnels, and weirs. Each terrace receives its portion before passing the rest along. No field is isolated. No farmer is independent. Control does not belong to individuals. It belongs to temples. Water distribution is governed by ritual calendars overseen by water temples positioned at key points in the system. Planting and harvesting are synchronized across entire valleys. This prevents pests, manages soil nutrients, and stabilizes yields without chemicals or modern machinery. Subak works because no one acts alone. If a single farmer diverts more water than agreed, the imbalance spreads downstream. Fields dry, conflict emerges. The system corrects itself not through enforcement, but through consequence. Cooperation is not moral, it is structural. This creates a quiet but absolute boundary. The terraces appear open, yet they do not tolerate disruption. Changes introduced without understanding ripple outward. Modern pumps, unscheduled planting, or altered flow patterns can collapse harmony built over centuries. What looks flexible is, in reality, precise. Water moves slowly here. It pools, reflects sky, and leaves, then spills gently into the next level. The sound is constant but subdued. There is no rush. The system is designed to endure, not to accelerate. Time is measured in seasons, not output. Tourism passes through the terraces easily. Paths are wide, access is simple, but the landscape does not rearrange itself to accommodate visitors. Farmers continue their work, ritual schedules remain unchanged. Water flows, as it always has, indifferent to cameras and crowds. Tegalalang reveals a different kind of restraint. There are no warning signs, no fences, no visible enforcement. Yet the system survives only because limits are respected, limits on use, timing, and behavior. In this journey, Tegalalang deepens the first lesson introduced by Bali. Beauty here is not accidental, it is maintained. The terraces exist because water is shared, not controlled, because human presence adapts to natural flow rather than forcing it. This is not nature untouched by people, it is nature shaped by agreement. Subak proves that some of Earth's most enduring wonders are not monuments. They are systems, quiet, cooperative, and unwilling to function if even one rule is ignored. From the air, Whitehaven Beach looks unreal in the simplest way. A long crescent of white curves along the edge of turquoise water, uninterrupted by buildings or roads. The color appears almost artificial, too clean, too bright to be natural. Yet nothing here is decorative. Everything is the result of composition. The sand is the reason. Whitehaven's shoreline is made of nearly pure silica, about 98%. Unlike ordinary beach sand, which contains crushed shells, coral, and minerals, this sand is composed of extremely fine quartz grains. They do not absorb heat. Even under direct sun, the surface remains cool. They do not cloud the water. The sea stays clear because the sand refuses to hold particles. This purity did not arrive quickly. The silica originated far inland, eroded from ancient rock formations and carried slowly by rivers to the coast. Over geological time, wave action removed heavier materials, leaving behind only the lightest, most resilient grains. What remains is not softness, it is endurance refined by time. The beach feels open and generous. Access is easy. The shoreline stretches for kilometers. There are no visible barriers, no guards, no gates. People walk freely along the waterline. The setting suggests abundance. But Whitehaven enforces one rule absolutely: the sand cannot be taken. Removing it is illegal. Even small quantities are prohibited, with heavy penalties attached. Not because the sand is rare in appearance, but because its balance is fragile. Take enough grains away, and the system changes. The cooling effect weakens. Water clarity declines. The process that created the beach cannot be replaced on human timescales. This is a boundary without drama. There are no warnings etched into stone. No speeches, just quiet enforcement backed by geological reality. The beach exists as it does, only if it remains whole. Ownership is not permitted. Memory is the only souvenir. Light transforms the landscape throughout the day. At low tide, swirling patterns form where sand and water meet, creating shifting shapes of white and blue. From above, these patterns resemble brushstrokes, temporary, precise, and unrepeatable. By afternoon, the colors sharpen, contrast increases. The beach becomes almost blinding in its clarity. Despite its calm appearance, Whitehaven is not passive. Currents shift. Weather changes quickly. The sand moves constantly, rearranged by tides and wind. What looks fixed is, in fact, always adjusting, maintaining equilibrium through motion. In the context of this journey, Whitehaven represents a subtle boundary. The environment is safe. The climate is forgiving. The danger is not physical, it is ethical. The limit here is not survival, but restraint. Whitehaven teaches a quiet lesson. Some places remain extraordinary, not because they are defended by walls or danger, but because they require something simpler and harder from those who arrive. Not conquest, not possession. Only the discipline to leave everything exactly where it belongs. From the surface, Ha Long Bay appears expansive and calm. Thousands of limestone towers rise from emerald water, scattered without obvious order. Boats move slowly between them. The horizon feels open, almost gentle. At first glance, the bay seems defined by what stands above the water. But Ha Long Bay is shaped just as much by what lies beneath it. The limestone here began forming more than 300 million years ago, when this region was covered by a shallow tropical sea. Layer by layer, marine sediments hardened into rock. Over immense time, tectonic uplift raised the seabed, exposing it to rain, waves, and chemical erosion. Water found fractures, acid dissolved stone. Cavities expanded downward and inward. What emerged was not just a bay of islands, but a hollowed landscape. Beneath many of the towering karst formations lies an extensive cave system, chambers, tunnels, and submerged passages carved silently by water. Some caves open high above the sea, their entrances hidden behind vegetation or shadow. Others sit at water level, accessible only by boat at specific tides. A few remain entirely underwater, visible only to divers. Ha Long is not solid land. It is land perforated by absence. Inside the caves, scale changes abruptly. Narrow openings give way to vast chambers, where ceilings disappear into darkness. Stalactites and stalagmites grow slowly, fed by mineral-rich droplets falling millimeter by millimeter. Each formation records time not in years, but in conditions, humidity, flow, chemistry. Light behaves differently here. Outside, the bay reflects sky and cloud in soft greens and blues. Inside, light is scarce and directional. It enters briefly, then fades. Shadows dominate. Sound carries farther. Water echoes against stone. The sense of open space is replaced by enclosure. The bay's surface beauty depends on this hidden system. The caves regulate water movement, sediment flow, and even local ecosystems. Certain species of fish, mollusks, and bats depend on these enclosed spaces. What happens inside the limestone directly affects the life visible outside it. This creates a fragile balance. Tour boats pass easily through the bay, but access to caves is controlled. Routes are fixed. Entry points are limited. Some caves are closed entirely to protect formations that cannot recover once damaged. Touching a stalactite can halt centuries of growth. Ha Long does not resist visitors. It restricts them. The boundary here is not obvious danger, but irreversibility. Damage cannot be undone within a human lifetime. Once broken, the process stops. In this journey, Ha Long Bay marks an important transition. The environment is still welcoming. Water is calm. Movement is guided, but the landscape begins to reveal a second layer, one that cannot be rushed, altered, or fully accessed. Ha Long teaches that some of Earth's wonders are not defined by what rises into view. They are defined by what has been slowly removed, by what water has taken away, leaving behind space, silence, and stone, shaped more by absence than by presence. Here, exploration does not mean going farther. It means understanding that beneath beauty lies a structure that only survives if it remains untouched. From the open Atlantic, Skellig Michael rises abruptly from the sea. A steep, jagged mass of rock stands isolated, battered by waves and wind, offering no gradual approach. There is no harbor, no gentle shoreline. The island appears less like land and more like an interruption in the ocean. Reaching it is never guaranteed. Landing is possible only when weather and tides briefly allow it. Even then, boats must time their approach carefully. One misjudged wave is enough to make landing impossible. Access is not scheduled by people, but granted or denied by the sea. The climb begins immediately. More than 600 stone steps ascend sharply from the water, carved directly into the rock. There are no railings, no barriers. The steps are narrow, uneven, and often wet. Each one demands attention. Balance matters more than speed. A fall here is not minor, it is final. These steps lead to one of the most improbable human settlements ever sustained. At the summit lies a monastic complex built more than 1,000 years ago. Stone beehive huts cling to the slope, arranged to resist relentless wind. There are no trees for shelter, no fresh water source beyond collected rain. Food once came from seabirds, fish, and sparse vegetation. The monks who lived here did not come seeking comfort. They came seeking endurance. Skellig Michael was chosen precisely because it was difficult to reach. Isolation was not a side effect, it was the purpose. Survival required discipline, coordination, and acceptance of constant exposure. Every movement depended on weather. Every day depended on restraint. The environment offers no forgiveness. Storms arrive without warning. Wind funnels through the rock. Fog erases orientation. Even today, visitors must remain constantly aware of footing, distance, and time. The island allows presence only briefly, and only under strict conditions. Sound behaves differently at the top. Below, waves crash violently against stone. Above, the wind dominates low, continuous, and forceful. Voices are quickly carried away. The space does not echo. It strips sound down to its most basic form. Despite its severity, Skellig Michael is not hostile. It is precise. Everything here exists at the minimum required for survival. No excess, no decoration. The stone structures mirror the island itself, functional, restrained, and shaped by necessity rather than comfort. In this journey, Skellig Michael marks a clear escalation. The boundary is no longer cultural or subtle. It is physical. Entry demands effort. Presence demands care. The landscape does not adjust to visitors. Visitors adjust or leave. Skellig Michael stands as proof that some places are extraordinary, not because humans mastered them, but because humans learned how little was truly needed to remain. Here, beauty is inseparable from risk, and survival itself becomes the monument. Palawan stretches long and narrow along the western edge of the Philippines, bordered by deep water on both sides. From above, the island appears intact: dense forest, pale beaches, limestone ridges rising cleanly from the coast. The landscape feels generous, almost protective. Yet life here is balanced on a single foundation. The sea sustains everything. Palawan's villages align with the shoreline. Boats outnumber roads. Markets open and close according to tides and catch. For many communities, fishing is not an industry. It is continuity. The rhythm of daily life follows weather patterns, currents, and seasons, rather than schedules. This dependence shapes the island's most famous feature. The Puerto Princesa subterranean river flows for kilometers through a limestone mountain before reaching the sea. Inside, fresh water meets salt water, creating a layered ecosystem that shifts with the tide. The cave does not remain constant. Its chemistry changes hourly. Species adapt to darkness, brackish water, and isolation. Blind fish navigate by vibration alone. Above ground, the same limestone continues. Cliffs rise abruptly from the water, riddled with caves and sinkholes carved by erosion. Coral reefs fringe the coast, filtering waves and supporting marine life. These reefs are not decorative barriers. They are infrastructure natural defenses against storms, erosion, and collapse. But the system is fragile. Palawan lies along the path of seasonal typhoons. Though less exposed than other regions, it still absorbs the consequences when storms shift course. Heavy rain floods lowlands. Rough seas halt fishing entirely. When the water turns hostile, livelihoods pause. The sea gives, and the sea withdraws. Beneath the surface, history remains suspended. In Coron Bay, Japanese warships sunk during World War II rest intact on the seabed. Coral has claimed their hulls, fish shelter inside rusted compartments. These wrecks are now ecosystems proof that even destruction becomes habitat over time. On land, Tabon Cave tells a deeper story. Human remains found here date back more than 20,000 years, marking Palawan as one of the earliest known settlement sites in the region. People have depended on these coasts for millennia, adapting to the same cycles of abundance and uncertainty. Modern tourism moves through Palawan gently, but not without consequence. Boat traffic stresses reefs, waste challenges remote communities. Conservation efforts exist, but they rely on the same balance as everything else: cooperation and restraint. In the context of this journey, Palawan represents a delicate boundary. The island is beautiful, accessible, and alive. Danger is not constant, but dependence is absolute. Survival here does not come from conquering land, but from reading the sea correctly. Palawan does not isolate through cliffs or altitude. It binds through reliance. Every calm surface hides a condition. Every clear lagoon depends on systems beneath it. And every life here is shaped by an understanding passed down quietly across generations. On Palawan, the land may feel solid, but the sea decides how long it remains that way. Rarotonga sits alone in the vastness of the South Pacific, a volcanic island ringed by a bright lagoon and a thin barrier of coral. From a distance, it appears fixed and self-contained, mountains rising sharply from the center, villages hugging the coast, calm water shielding the land from the open ocean. But Rarotonga is not still. The island rests on the Pacific Plate, moving westward at a rate measured in centimeters per year. The motion is imperceptible to human senses. No vibration, no shift in horizon. Yet over centuries, this slow drift reshapes distance, alters currents, and repositions the island within the wider ocean system. Here, movement happens without drama. The lagoon plays a critical role. Coral reefs encircle much of the island, breaking incoming waves and creating a protected interior sea. Inside this ring, water is calmer, warmer, and rich with marine life. Fish, coral, and seagrass thrive because energy from the open ocean is filtered before it arrives. This protection comes with limits. Rarotonga has no large rivers. Freshwater depends almost entirely on rainfall and small underground springs. When rain patterns shift, the island feels it immediately. Water conservation is not policy, it is necessity. Supply cannot be expanded. It can only be managed. The island's beauty is therefore conditional. Clear water, healthy reefs, and stable coastlines exist only while the system holds. Coral damage weakens the lagoon's barrier. Rising seas press closer to the shore. What appears serene is, in fact, tightly balanced. At night, the illusion of stillness deepens. Free from light pollution, the sky opens fully. The Milky Way stretches overhead with unusual clarity. Stars appear fixed, even as the island beneath them continues its silent journey. The contrast is striking: cosmic stability above, geological motion below. Human presence adapts to this rhythm. Communities remain close to the coast, oriented toward the lagoon. Fishing follows reef health. Construction respects elevation and flood risk. There is little room for expansion and no need for speed. Life adjusts rather than accelerates. In the context of this journey, Rarotonga represents a quieter boundary. The environment is not hostile. Survival is not extreme, but permanence is an illusion. The island's existence depends on processes far beyond its shoreline: plate movement, climate patterns, and coral resilience. Rarotonga teaches that some boundaries are not felt through danger or difficulty. They are felt through time. The island drifts, slowly and without resistance, carrying its people, reefs, and mountains across the Pacific, not toward a destination, but along a path that no one can see and no one can stop. Kauai appears complete when seen from above. A green mass surrounded by blue, ridges radiating outward, valleys cut deep into volcanic stone. Roads circle most of the island, towns connect easily, beaches feel reachable. At first, Kauai seems navigable, designed for movement, then the road stops. Along the island's northwestern edge, the Napali coast rises abruptly from the sea. Cliffs lift thousands of feet almost vertically, folding into sharp ridges and narrow valleys that run straight into the ocean. There is no highway here, no continuous path, no way to go around. Access ends. What lies beyond can only be reached by boat, helicopter, or on foot along a narrow trail carved into the cliff face. The Kalalau Trail traces this edge for just over 11 miles, crossing exposed slopes, unstable ground, and valleys that flood without warning. Progress depends entirely on weather, footing, and restraint. The land does not invite improvisation. Kauai is one of the oldest Hawaiian islands, shaped by millions of years of erosion rather than recent volcanic growth. Rainfall is constant and intense, especially on Mount Waialeale, one of the wettest places on Earth. Water carves relentlessly, steepening valleys and weakening slopes. Trails collapse, paths vanish. What exists today may not exist tomorrow. Here, isolation is structural. The cliffs of Napali are not obstacles to be conquered. They are boundaries created by geology and maintained by weather. No road has ever crossed them, not because of lack of effort, but because the terrain does not permit it. Engineering yields to erosion. Below the cliffs, the ocean adds another limit. Currents shift rapidly along the coast. Swells rise without warning. Landings are dangerous, sometimes impossible. Boats wait offshore, judging timing carefully. Entry is conditional, exit even more so. Despite this, life persists in pockets. Ancient Hawaiian communities once lived in these valleys, farming taro and fishing the coast. Their survival depended on deep knowledge of terrain, tides, and rainfall. When those systems failed, the land did not adapt. People moved away. Today, the valleys remain largely uninhabited. Vegetation is dense, silence dominates. The absence of roads preserves the landscape, but also enforces distance. What cannot be reached easily remains intact, not by protection, but by refusal. In the context of this journey, Kauai marks a distinct boundary. The island is not hostile, it is fertile, lush, and alive, but it denies continuity. Movement must stop, reverse, or take to the air or sea. The idea of going around simply does not apply. Kauai shows that some limits are not dramatic. They are geographic facts. Here, exploration ends not with danger, but with a quiet realization. The land does not need to block you. It only needs to remain exactly as it is. Varanasi does not present itself as a destination. It presents itself as a condition. Set along the banks of the Ganges River, the city appears dense, continuous, and ancient. Buildings press tightly together. Streets narrow into corridors. Movement feels layered rather than linear. There is no clear beginning or end, only flow. Everything here orients toward the river. The Ganges is not treated as water. It is treated as passage. Along its edge, a sequence of stone ghats descends step by step into the current. Each ghat serves a specific purpose: bathing, prayer, meditation, or cremation. These functions are not symbolic, they are operational, repeated daily without pause. Ritual in Varanasi is constant. At dawn, bodies enter the river for purification. Ash is washed from stone. Offerings drift downstream. By night, funeral pyres burn openly along the cremation ghats. Wood cracks, flames rise. Smoke settles into the narrow airspace between buildings. Death is not hidden. It is processed in public view. This continuity defines the city's boundary. Varanasi does not separate the sacred from the ordinary. Daily commerce unfolds beside ritual acts. Children pass cremation fires on their way home. Boats cross the river as prayers echo across the water. Life and death occupy the same physical space. Without transition, the river itself enforces restraint. Its current is strong, unpredictable, and chemically complex. Despite pollution, the Ganges carries unusually high levels of dissolved oxygen and bacteriophages, microorganisms that reduce harmful bacteria. Science explains part of this phenomenon, but not the reverence it commands. Belief persists alongside data, neither canceling the other. Entry here is unrestricted. Understanding is not. Visitors can walk the ghats freely, but participation is governed by unspoken rules. Certain areas demand silence, others demand distance. Photography stops where ritual begins. The city does not instruct. It expects awareness. Time behaves differently in Varanasi. Events are not scheduled for convenience. They recur according to cycles: daily, lunar, seasonal. The city absorbs crowds without adjusting its pace. It does not accelerate. It does not pause. It continues. In the context of this journey, Varanasi marks a shift from physical boundaries to existential ones. The danger is not environmental. Survival is not at risk. What is challenged here is comfort, intellectual and emotional. The city offers no buffer between observer and meaning. Varanasi does not overwhelm through scale or spectacle. It disorients through proximity. Everything is close. Belief, decay, devotion, routine. The river carries all of it downstream, unchanged by who is watching. Here, Earth's unreal quality is not geological, it is human. A city where ritual has replaced explanation, where the boundary is not access, but acceptance of what cannot be separated. Life, death, and the river that carries both away. Tikal does not rise from the jungle, it emerges from within it. From above, the rainforest canopy appears continuous, an unbroken surface of green stretching to the horizon. Nothing suggests that stone structures exist below. No lines, no geometry, no human order. The forest conceals its history completely. Only when you are already inside does Tikal reveal itself. Stone steps appear between roots, walls rise behind vines, pyramids lift their upper tiers above the treetops, like islands breaking through a green sea. The city is not discovered from afar. It is encountered at close range, one structure at a time. Tikal was once one of the largest cities of the ancient Maya world. At its peak, it supported tens of thousands of people with no rivers, no draft animals, and no metal tools. Water was captured through reservoirs. Food was grown on raised fields and terraces. Causeways connected ceremonial centers across kilometers of forest. The city functioned through planning, not abundance. Then it was abandoned. By the 10th century, Tikal's population collapsed. The reasons remain debated: drought, overuse of land, political instability. What followed is certain. Without maintenance, stone cracked, roofs fell, vegetation moved in immediately. The jungle did not destroy the city in a single event. It occupied it slowly. Roots became structural forces. Trees grew on temple roofs. Their roots widened cracks, pried apart masonry, and pulled walls inward. Rainwater followed these openings, accelerating decay. Over centuries, buildings collapsed into themselves, forming hills indistinguishable from natural terrain. For a long time, Tikal disappeared completely. When explorers returned, they did not find ruins in a clearing. They found a forest shaped by geometry. Unnatural mounds, straight edges softened by moss, staircases buried under soil. Excavation revealed that much of the city still lies underground, intact but sealed. Sound behaves differently here. Howler monkeys call from the canopy, their voices deep and mechanical, echoing across plazas once filled with ritual and command. Birds cross above temples. Wind moves leaves, not stone. The city no longer produces sound of its own. The scale is deceptive. Temples rise over 200 feet, yet feel compressed by the forest around them. There are no long sightlines, no open vistas. The jungle limits perception, turning monumental architecture into fragments glimpsed through branches. In the context of this journey, Tikal represents a decisive boundary. Not one of danger or access, but of permanence. This is not a place humans lost to catastrophe. It is a place the forest reclaimed, once human systems failed to sustain themselves. Tikal does not stand as a ruin preserved against nature. It exists as evidence of negotiation, and of what happens when that negotiation ends. The jungle did not erase the city. It absorbed it. Stone remains, names remain, pyramids still rise, but authority, control, and permanence belong to the forest now. Here, unreal does not mean impossible. It means temporary, a reminder that even the most complex human systems remain conditional and that nature does not destroy civilizations. It waits them out. Paris is usually read from the surface. Boulevards radiate outward. Monuments define orientation. Light reflects off stone facades, designed to be seen, admired, remembered. Above ground, the city performs history as architecture. Below it, Paris does something else entirely. The catacombs do not begin as a monument. They begin as absence. Beneath the streets lies a vast network of former limestone quarries, tunnels carved long before modern Paris existed. This stone built the city above. Churches, palaces, bridges, and walls were all lifted from this underground void. What remained was a hollowed landscape stretching for hundreds of kilometers. For centuries, it stayed invisible. In the late 18th century, Paris faced a crisis. Cemeteries overflowed, disease spread, the dead crowded the living. The solution was not expansion outward, but downward. Bones were exhumed, transported at night, and stacked carefully inside the abandoned quarries. Order was imposed underground. Skulls and femurs were arranged into walls. Tibias filled gaps. Names of cemeteries were carved into stone. Dates were recorded. What could not be remembered individually was organized collectively. The catacombs became a city of remains, structured, catalogued, silent. The transition is immediate. Descending the stairs, temperature drops, sound dulls, air thickens slightly with moisture and mineral dust, ceilings lower, passages narrow. The geometry of the surface city disappears, replaced by irregular corridors that do not follow modern logic. This is not a place of spectacle. There are no grand chambers, no dramatic scale. The power comes from repetition, bone after bone, corridor after corridor. Millions of individuals reduced to identical units of structure. Identity is surrendered to arrangement. Time behaves differently here. There is no day or night, no weather. The environment remains stable, almost sealed. Footsteps echo briefly, then vanish. Voices flatten against stone. Silence returns quickly, as if the space absorbs sound deliberately. Navigation becomes fragile. Above ground, Paris offers constant reference points. Below, orientation is lost within minutes. Many tunnels extend far beyond the public route, unmapped, unlit, and illegal to enter. People who stray have disappeared for days, sometimes permanently. The catacombs enforce a boundary, not through danger, but through disorientation. This is not a space designed for movement. It is a space designed for containment of matter, of memory, of what the city could not keep on its surface. In the context of this journey, the catacombs mark a critical shift. Nature is absent here. No jungle, no water, no sky. This boundary is entirely human-made, yet no less overwhelming. It shows what happens when civilization turns inward to solve its limits. Paris built upward to celebrate itself. It built downward to survive. The catacombs are not a hidden attraction. They are a second city, one without names, without light, without future growth. A reminder that every civilization carries a shadow beneath its streets, and that not all wonders are meant to be seen, only acknowledged, then left undisturbed. From a distance, the Great Wall appears continuous, a line drawn across mountains, ridges, and deserts, as if the land itself was stitched together. It follows no single terrain. It adapts to slopes, crests, ravines. The wall does not dominate the landscape. It submits to it, bending where it must. Up close, the illusion of unity breaks. The Great Wall is not one wall. It is many walls built in different centuries, by different dynasties, using different materials for different threats. Earth, tamped soil, stone, brick, wood. Each section records the limits of its era's technology and urgency. Construction was relentless. Millions were conscripted: soldiers, farmers, prisoners, and civilians. Many never returned. Exposure, starvation, exhaustion, collapse. Bodies were buried nearby, or, according to legend, within the wall itself. Whether literal or symbolic, the reputation remained. The structure earned a name that persists: the longest cemetery on Earth. The wall was not built for permanence. It was built for delay. Rather than an impenetrable barrier, it functioned as a system: watchtowers for signaling, gates for control, patrol paths for movement, smoke by day, fire by night. Messages traveled faster than armies. The wall bought time, not certainty, and often it failed. Invaders bypassed weak sections, bribed guards, entered through gates. The wall did not stop history. It slowed it, redirected it, reshaped its pace. The true defense was never the stone, it was coordination and manpower. Time has stripped the wall of authority. Many sections have collapsed back into the hills. Bricks crumble, earth walls erode into slopes, grass grows. Where soldiers once stood watch, in remote areas, the wall dissolves almost completely, indistinguishable from the ridgeline it follows. Yet traces remain everywhere. Carvings scratched by guards, watchtowers positioned with precise sightlines, mortar mixed with sticky rice, an innovation that increased durability. These details reveal the wall not as a monument, but as infrastructure under pressure. Walking along it today, scale becomes deceptive. The wall feels narrow, human-sized, often barely wide enough for two people to pass. The grandeur exists only when seen as distance, thousands of kilometers accumulated into legend. In isolation, each segment feels modest, even fragile. In the context of this journey, the Great Wall represents a human boundary at its most exposed. It is a line drawn by fear, maintained by sacrifice, and abandoned by time. It shows how civilizations attempt to fix limits into stone, and how those limits erode once the conditions that created them disappear. The Great Wall is not unreal because it is vast. It is unreal because it still stands, despite being built from exhaustion, loss, and urgency. A structure that defends nothing now, guards no border, and yet continues to cross the land, quietly carrying the weight of the lives that made it possible. Everest does not dominate Nepal from a distance. It hides among other giants. Only when scale is recalibrated, when valleys fall away and air thins, does Everest separate itself from the surrounding range. At 8,848 meters, it marks not just height, but a biological limit. Above it, human life becomes conditional. The boundary is called the death zone. Above 8,000 meters, oxygen pressure drops to roughly 1/3 of that at sea level. The body cannot acclimatize here. Cells begin to fail, judgment slows, muscles weaken, the brain swells. Every hour spent above this line accelerates decline. Survival becomes a countdown, not an achievement. Movement is reduced to function. Climbers do not explore, they manage exposure. Steps are calculated. Breathing is mechanical. Sleep is brief and shallow, if it happens at all. The mountain offers no margin for error. A delay of minutes can mean frostbite. A delay of hours can mean death. The landscape reflects this severity. Ice cliffs shift constantly. Seracs collapse without warning. Crevasses open and close as glaciers move inches each day. Fixed ropes offer guidance, not safety. Everything here is temporary. Even the route itself. Bodies remain on the mountain. Those who die above the death zone are rarely recovered. Altitude, weather, and risk make rescue nearly impossible. The dead become landmarks, frozen into place, unmoving, preserved by cold. Their presence is not hidden. It is part of the route, a silent record of past attempts. Yet Everest's danger is not limited to height. The mountain sits on an active geological boundary. The Indian tectonic plate continues to push beneath the Eurasian plate, lifting the Himalayas by several millimeters each year. Nepal is one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. Earthquakes are frequent. Landslides are constant. The ground itself is unstable. In 2015, this instability became visible. A major earthquake triggered avalanches across Everest, killing climbers and Sherpa guides alike. Base camp, considered the safest zone, collapsed under moving ice and debris. The event reinforced a reality often ignored. The mountain is not fixed. It is still forming. Despite this, Everest attracts thousands. Technology has improved access, oxygen systems, weather forecasts, fixed routes, yet none of these change the fundamental equation. The mountain does not adapt to humans. Humans adapt briefly, then leave or fail to. In the context of this journey, Everest represents an absolute boundary, not symbolic, not cultural, biological, and geological. It is a place where beauty ends and function begins, where the Earth's movement is measured in collisions, where survival depends on leaving quickly. Everest is not the world's greatest challenge because it is tall. It is because it allows no negotiation with air, with gravity, or with the ground beneath your feet that never stops moving. Mount Bromo does not rise alone. It sits inside a larger wound. The volcano stands within the Tenga caldera, a vast basin formed by the collapse of an ancient mountain. Around it stretches a plain of volcanic sand, flat and gray, interrupted only by wind, ash, and distant ridgelines. The ground feels unfinished, as if solid land has not fully decided to exist here. Bromo remains active. Its crater releases constant smoke. Sulfur drifts through the air. At irregular intervals, the volcano erupts, sending ash across nearby villages and closing airspace hundreds of kilometers away. The mountain offers no promise of stability. It signals its presence continuously, yet people live beside it. The Tengarese community has occupied this region for centuries. Their relationship with the volcano is not defensive. It is ritualized. Bromo is not treated as a threat to be avoided, but as a force to be acknowledged. Each year, this relationship becomes visible. During the Yadnya ceremony, villagers climb the steep stairway to the crater's edge, carrying offerings, rice, vegetables, livestock, money. At the rim, they throw these items directly into the smoking mouth of the volcano. The act is not symbolic, it is transactional. According to Tengarese belief, the ritual repays a debt to the mountain, ensuring balance between human life and volcanic power. The offerings are not meant to return, they are surrendered completely. Some stand below. At the base of the crater, individuals wait with nets, attempting to catch offerings before they fall too deep. This practice exists alongside the ritual, neither condemned nor endorsed. It reveals a layered relationship with the mountain reverence above, survival below. The environment enforces humility. The plain offers no shelter. Wind scours the surface constantly. Fine ash enters eyes and lungs. Temperature shifts are sharp. At sunrise, the landscape appears unreal, shadows stretching across the sand, steam rising into cold air. By midday, the scene becomes harsh and exposed. Bromo's scale is deceptive. It is not Indonesia's tallest volcano. It is not the most violent. Its power lies in visibility. The crater is open. The process is audible. You can stand meters from active geology and watch the Earth release pressure in real time. In the context of this journey, Mount Bromo marks a critical boundary between danger and coexistence. Here, humans do not attempt to control nature. They do not retreat from it either. They negotiate through repetition, through ritual that acknowledges risk without eliminating it. The volcano does not respond. It erupts on its own schedule. It accepts offerings without consequence. The ritual does not tame the mountain. It frames human presence within its domain. Mount Bromo is not unreal because it erupts. It is unreal because people continue to approach it not with conquest, but with acceptance. A place where the earth remains unfinished, and where survival is shaped not by resistance, but by knowing when to give something back. Street Lucia looks calm from the sea. Green slopes descend toward turquoise water. Rainforest covers volcanic ridges. The island presents itself as a tropical refuge. Soft light, warm air, controlled beauty. That surface impression is misleading. At the island's core lies a reminder that Street Lucia is not settled land, but active ground. The Surreal volcanic complex sits inland, where the earth remains thin and unfinished. Here, the volcano does not rise as a cone. It opens as a wound. The sulfur springs are often called the world's only drive-in volcano. A road leads directly into the crater. Vehicles stop where the ground steams. There is no dramatic ascent, no distant observation point. You arrive abruptly, surrounded by vents, releasing heat and gas from below. The ground breathes. Sulfur dioxide escapes through fissures in the rock, carrying a sharp, metallic smell that fills the air immediately. The scent is unmistakable acidic, choking if inhaled too deeply. Warning signs are not symbolic. Gas concentrations can become dangerous without notice, depending on wind and pressure. The earth here is chemically alive. Boiling mud pools bubble constantly, thick and gray, their surfaces rising and collapsing in slow pulses. The temperature beneath can exceed 100 degrees Celsius. These pools are not decorative features. They are pressure valves, points where the planet releases internal heat. Despite this, people enter the crater daily. Visitors walk among vents. Guides monitor gas levels. Movement is controlled, but proximity is real. The experience is not about spectacle. It is about exposure, standing inside a system that has not cooled. Nearby, Diamond Falls reveals another layer. Water cascades over mineral-coated rock, its color shifting between yellow, orange, and green. These hues are not reflections. They are chemical stains, iron, sulfur, and other volcanic minerals deposited continuously by hot spring runoff. The waterfall changes color over time as chemistry changes. St. Lucia's danger is not confined to land. Volcanic activity shapes coastal waters as well. Coral reefs thrive in some zones, but toxic organisms also persist. Certain marine species carry venom or cause infection when disturbed. The same forces that create biodiversity also impose risk. In the context of this journey, St. Lucia represents a subtle boundary. This is not an extreme environment like a polar ice field or a desert of death. It is habitable, beautiful, and welcoming until it is not. The danger here is quiet, invisible, chemical. The volcano does not announce eruption. It releases energy gradually, continuously, reminding visitors that stability is temporary. The island is not dormant, it is managed. St. Lucia is unreal, not because you can drive into a volcano. It is unreal because you can forget where you are while doing so. Standing on active geology, breathing gases from the Earth's interior, surrounded by scenery gentle enough to make danger feel optional. Here, paradise exists directly above pressure. Yellowstone appears calm by design. Forests spread across rolling plateaus. Rivers curve through open valleys. Herds move slowly between meadows. From the surface, the landscape resembles a carefully preserved wilderness. Balanced, spacious, controlled. Beneath it lies something else entirely. Yellowstone sits atop one of the largest active volcanic systems on Earth. The visible park occupies only a fraction of a massive caldera formed by ancient eruptions that reshaped continents. The magma chamber below is not a single pool, but a complex network of molten and semi-molten rock extending miles underground. The ground here is not stable. Thousands of earthquakes occur every year, most too small to feel. The surface rises and falls by centimeters as magma shifts below. These movements are measured constantly, not to predict eruption, but to understand pressure. What reaches the surface is heat. Geysers, hot springs, fumaroles, and mud pots are not attractions, they are vents. Water circulates deep underground, heated by magma, then forced back upward through fractures in the crust. When pressure exceeds resistance, it erupts. Old Faithful's predictability is the exception, not the rule. Most features change without warning. Springs alter color as microbial populations shift. Geysers stop erupting. New vents appear after earthquakes. Entire thermal areas migrate slowly across the landscape, guided by hidden pathways below. The colors are biological. Brilliant blues, oranges, and reds come from heat-loving microorganisms, life forms adapted to temperatures that would kill most organisms instantly. These microbes form layered bands that mark temperature gradients precisely. The visuals are not decoration, they are data. The danger is constant. Water temperatures can exceed boiling. Crusts around springs appear solid, but can collapse under weight. Toxic gases accumulate in low areas. Wildlife, despite experience, sometimes missteps and dies instantly. Yellowstone is monitored intensely. Seismic sensors track tremors. GPS stations record ground deformation. Gas emissions are analyzed continuously. The goal is not reassurance, it is early detection of change. A super eruption is unlikely in human timescales, but its consequences would be global. Yellowstone's paradox is accessibility. People walk trails above magma. They photograph vents connected to deep reservoirs of heat. The park does not restrict access because danger is absent. It manages access because danger is constant but slow. In the context of this journey, Yellowstone represents a hidden boundary. Unlike mountains or deserts, the threat here is invisible. There is no edge to approach, no summit to cross. The limit exists below the feet, out of sight, operating on geological time. Yellowstone is not unreal because it might erupt. It is unreal because life, tourism, and wilderness coexist directly above one of the planet's most destructive forces, quietly, measured in centimeters, watched by instruments, while the ground continues to heat, shift, and breathe beneath a national park built to feel safe. From above, both places appear unreal in the same way. Water shifts from deep blue to turquoise. Reefs form intricate patterns beneath the surface. Islands scatter like fragments of a submerged world. The Great Barrier Reef and Raja Ampat are often described as paradises, spaces of color, abundance, and apparent calm. That calm is deceptive. Beneath the surface lies one of the most competitive environments on Earth. Coral reefs are not peaceful gardens. They are dense biological systems where survival depends on precision, timing, and defense. Everything here has an edge. Coral itself is not stone. It is living tissue built on calcium carbonate skeletons, fragile and sharp. Fire coral burns on contact. Certain species cut skin instantly. One careless movement can slice hands, legs, or fins. The beauty hides blades. Life is abundant because danger is constant. Venomous creatures occupy the same spaces as the most delicate fish. Stonefish remain invisible against the reef, capable of delivering lethal venom through a single step. Sea snakes glide calmly, their toxins among the most potent on the planet. Box jellyfish drift almost unseen, their tentacles carrying enough venom to kill within minutes. Currents add another layer. In Raja Ampat especially, water moves with force and unpredictability. Narrow channels accelerate flow, pulling divers away from reefs without warning. These currents feed the ecosystem, bringing nutrients that sustain extraordinary biodiversity, but they also punish miscalculation. The Great Barrier Reef operates at a different scale. Stretching over thousands of kilometers, it is the largest living structure on Earth. Yet its vastness offers no immunity. Coral bleaching has erased entire sections. Rising temperatures disrupt the delicate balance that allows reefs to exist at all. When water warms by just 1 or 2 degrees, life collapses rapidly. Damage is often invisible at first. Corals lose color, fish migrate, algae spreads. The structure remains, but function disappears. A reef can look intact while already dying. Human presence amplifies risk. Anchors crush coral. Sunscreen chemicals alter water chemistry. Overfishing removes keystone species. Even careful tourism leaves traces. These systems evolved without redundancy. Loss accumulates quickly. In the context of this journey, reefs represent a critical boundary. They are among the most beautiful environments on the planet and among the most unforgiving. They reward awareness and punish assumption. There is no solid ground here, no stable footing. Survival depends on respecting invisible rules. The knives are not metaphors. They are chemical, biological, and physical. Sharp, coral, venom, current, heat, collapse. Everything that sustains life here can also end it. The Great Barrier Reef and Raja Ampat are unreal not because they are colorful. They are unreal because such beauty exists only under constant threat, where abundance depends on precision, where paradise tolerates no mistakes, and where one careless movement can turn wonder into injury. Here, the boundary is clear. You are allowed to enter, but only briefly, and only if you understand that this world was never built for you. Kamchatka does not look hostile at first glance. From above, the peninsula appears vast and untouched, snow-covered volcanoes, deep valleys, rivers threading through tundra. There are no cities dominating the landscape, no dense infrastructure, no obvious signs of pressure. It feels empty, remote, almost preserved. That impression is false. Kamchatka sits directly on the Pacific Ring of Fire, one of the most unstable geological zones on Earth. Here, the planet does not rest. It exhales, ruptures, and leaks continuously, often without warning. More than 300 volcanoes rise across the peninsula. Around 30 remain active. Some erupt violently, others simmer quietly, releasing heat and gas day after day. The ground itself is thin, fractured, and alive beneath the surface. The Valley of Geysers reveals this instability clearly. Jets of superheated water erupt from the earth at regular intervals, driven by pressure building kilometers below. Pools of turquoise, emerald, and rust form around them, colored not by minerals for beauty, but by chemistry and temperature. The water here can exceed boiling. One step off stable ground is enough to cause fatal burns. Steam fills the air, but not all vapor is harmless. Kamchatka's vents release sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, and carbon dioxide. These gases are invisible and often odorless at dangerous concentrations. In low-lying areas, they accumulate silently, displacing oxygen. Animals wander in and collapse without struggle. Birds fall mid-flight. The landscape gives no alarm. This is not myth. In certain valleys, signs warn visitors not to stop walking. Pausing too long can be lethal. The danger is passive, ambient, and indifferent. Volcanic slopes add another layer of risk. Ash fields hide unstable crusts. Snow masks heat vents beneath it. Sudden ground collapse is possible even in calm weather. Eruptions can occur with minimal precursor signals, sending ash columns kilometers into the atmosphere, disrupting air travel across continents. And yet, life persists. Brown bears roam these valleys in extraordinary numbers, feeding on salmon runs enriched by volcanic nutrients. Moss and grass grow aggressively where heat warms the soil. Extremophile bacteria thrive in acidic pools that would dissolve most organisms. Kamchatka is not barren. It is selective. In the context of this journey, Kamchatka represents a deeper boundary. This is not beauty shaped for observation. It is process exposed, the earth mid-action. Nothing here adapts to humans. There are no rituals, no monuments, no softened edges. only force. Geysers do not perform. Gas does not warn. Volcanoes do not negotiate. Kamchatka reminds us that some places are not destinations, they are systems, running continuously, leaking danger quietly, and allowing life only where it learns to survive, alongside poison, heat, and instability. Here, the boundary is absolute. You can witness it, you can study it, but you do not belong inside it. Greenland appears silent from a distance. A vast white mass dominates the horizon, smooth and uninterrupted, stretching beyond scale. Ice replaces land, color disappears, movement slows to near stillness. To the human eye, it feels frozen, not just physically, but in time. That impression is misleading. Greenland is not inert. It is active, layered, and unstable. Beneath its ice sheet, one of the largest on Earth, lies a concealed landscape. Mountains, valleys, and river systems exist below kilometers of compressed ice, preserved and reshaped over millions of years. Some of these rivers still flow, carrying meltwater through dark channels under immense pressure, unseen and unmapped. The ice above them is not static. Each year, more than 200 billion tons of ice melt from Greenland's surface. Meltwater carves vertical shafts known as moulins, drilling straight through the ice and accelerating movement toward the sea. What looks solid fractures quietly, internally, long before collapse becomes visible. At the coastline, the process becomes violent. Massive glaciers terminate in fjords, where ice breaks away in explosive carving events. Icebergs the size of city blocks detach without warning, sending shock waves through the water. These collapses generate powerful waves, capable of overturning boats kilometers away. The sound resembles thunder low, deep, and final. Yet danger here is not always dramatic. The greatest threat is scale. If Greenland's ice sheet were to melt completely, global sea levels would rise by more than 7 meters. Entire coastlines would vanish. Cities would retreat or drown. This is not speculation, it is arithmetic. Greenland holds that power quietly. Even the surface is deceptive. Snowfields can conceal crevasses tens of meters deep, their openings masked by thin crusts of ice. One step in the wrong place leads not to injury, but disappearance. Rescue is often impossible. Life exists, but sparsely. Polar bears roam coastal edges, dependent on sea ice that forms later and vanishes earlier each year. Arctic sharks, some living centuries, move slowly through dark, cold waters beneath the ice. Microorganisms bloom briefly on the surface in summer, tinting ice pink or green before freezing returns. In the context of this journey, Greenland represents concealment as a boundary. Nothing here invites exploration freely. Nothing reveals itself fully. The danger is not heat or poison, but mass. The weight of ice, the pressure of time, the consequences of slow change. Greenland does not confront humans directly. It does not erupt, roar, or chase. It simply exists, vast, covered, and quietly decisive. a reminder that some of Earth's most powerful forces are not seen at all. They are buried. Lake Baikal looks calm only on the surface. In winter, its ice stretches smooth and glass-clear across the horizon. Cracks trace long white lines beneath your feet. Frozen bubbles appear suspended in layers, stacked like constellations trapped in time. The lake feels solid, almost inviting. That sense of safety is an illusion. Baikal is the deepest lake on Earth. More than 1,600 meters descend beneath the ice, forming a vertical world that no human can fully reach. Its depth is not just physical, it is geological. Baikal sits inside an active rift valley, where the Earth's crust is slowly pulling apart. The lake is widening, and it is deepening. Beneath the frozen surface, tectonic forces continue to reshape the basin. Fault lines run along the lakebed. Earthquakes occur regularly, often unnoticed except by instruments. The water above absorbs the movement silently, hiding instability under perfect stillness. The ice tells part of this story. Baikal's winter ice is unusually transparent, forming slowly in extreme cold. Methane gas rises from organic material on the lakebed and becomes trapped as the surface freezes. Layer upon layer of bubbles lock into place, creating vertical columns that look decorative but represent pressure building below. These gases are flammable. In rare conditions, ignition can produce sudden flame bursts across the ice surface. More commonly, the danger is structural. Gas pockets weaken the ice, creating invisible zones of fragility. What appears thick and solid can fracture instantly under weight. Cracks race across the lake at high speed. When Baikal shifts, the ice releases tension in long, explosive splits that echo like gunfire. These fissures can open meters wide in seconds, isolating travelers with no warning. The temperature drops quickly inside these fractures. Falling in is often fatal. Life here is highly specialized. Baikal seals, found nowhere else on Earth's surface, through breathing holes, adapted to survive months beneath ice. Microorganisms cleanse the water naturally, keeping it extraordinarily clear. More than half of Baikal's species are endemic, evolved in isolation over millions of years. But this isolation is fragile. Warming temperatures thin the ice season. Industrial pressure threatens the lake's chemistry. Even small disruptions ripple deeply in a system built on balance and cold. In this journey, Lake Baikal represents depth as a boundary. Not heat, not poison, not altitude. But vertical distance and the impossibility of knowing what lies beneath. The surface invites confidence. The clarity feels reassuring. Yet Baikal reminds us that transparency is not safety. Some dangers are not hidden by darkness, but by how calm they appear. The ice holds its breath. The lake waits below. And depth remains the final limit humans cannot cross, only stand above. Lençóis Maranhenses should not exist. From above, it appears unmistakably desert, vast white dunes rolling toward the horizon. Shaped by wind into soft, repeating curves. There are no rocks, no vegetation breaking the surface, no visible rivers. By every rule of geography, this landscape should be dry, hostile, and empty. It is none of those things. Each year, during the rainy season, water arrives. Heavy equatorial rains fall for months, saturating the sand. Because the dunes rest on a layer of impermeable rock, the water cannot drain downward. Instead, it collects between the ridges, forming thousands of freshwater lagoons, clear, blue, and unexpectedly cold. The desert fills. These pools are temporary. They have no outlets, no visible inflow, no permanence. They appear, expand, shimmer under the sun, and then slowly vanish as the dry season returns. By late summer, many are gone completely, leaving only smooth sand behind, no trace that water was ever there. Movement across Lensois is deceptive. The dunes look soft, but walking them is exhausting. Each step sinks slightly, draining energy. Distances are difficult to judge. The horizon shifts constantly as light changes. What seems close often takes hours to reach. Orientation becomes unreliable in a landscape without fixed reference points. Yet life adapts quickly. Fish appear in the lagoon, species that survive the dry months buried in damp sand, entering dormancy until water returns. Insects hatch, breed, and disappear within weeks. Birds migrate precisely with the seasons, arriving when lagoons peak and leaving before they evaporate. Nothing here stays long. The water is safe to drink in places, but only briefly. As levels drop, stagnation begins. Heat concentrates, conditions shift. What was refreshing can become unsafe within days. Lensois rewards timing, not permanence. This is not an oasis. An oasis implies stability, a known source, a predictable refuge. Lensois offers no such promise. Its beauty depends entirely on alignment, rain intensity, wind patterns, seasonal timing. Miss the window, and the desert reveals its other face, dry, blinding, and empty. In the context of this journey, Lençóis Maranhenses represents contradiction as a boundary. Not danger through aggression, but through impermanence. Water does not guarantee survival. Beauty does not imply shelter. The desert allows entry only briefly. Under conditions it controls completely. It gives abundance, then withdraws it without warning or memory. Lençóis does not test strength or courage. It tests assumption. It reminds us that even the most generous landscapes can be temporary, and that survival often depends not on force, but on understanding when a place will no longer be what it appears to be. Here, the boundary is time, and once it closes, the desert returns. The Namib Desert does not feel empty, it feels old. Stretching along the Atlantic coast of southern Africa, the Namib is considered one of the oldest deserts on Earth, existing for more than 50 million years. Its dunes glow deep red and orange, their color intensified by iron oxidized over immense spans of time. These are not temporary forms. They are structures refined by age. From a distance, the desert appears static, but survival here depends on motion. Rain is rare. Some regions go years without a single drop. Yet life persists not by waiting for water, but by intercepting it in other forms. Each morning, cold air from the Benguela Current meets warmer desert air, producing dense coastal fog. This fog drifts inland, becoming the primary water source for much of the ecosystem. Plants and animals are built around it. The Welwitschia plant survives for centuries, with only 2 leaves, absorbing moisture directly from fog. Beetles climb dune ridges at dawn, tilting their bodies so condensation runs into their mouths. Lizards lift their legs from the hot sand, minimizing contact with ground that can exceed 60 degrees Celsius. Nothing here wastes energy. The dunes themselves are part of the system. Their size and shape shift slowly under persistent wind, but their color records time. The tallest dunes, some rising more than 300 meters, mark areas where sand has remained undisturbed for tens of thousands of years. Beneath this beauty lies danger. Heat is constant. Dehydration comes quickly. Distances are misleading in the open landscape, where reference points vanish and mirages form easily. Navigation errors can be fatal. There is no shelter, no sudden rescue, no margin for miscalculation. Even the animals carry risk. The Namib Desert adder buries itself beneath sand, nearly invisible, striking when disturbed. Scorpions emerge at night, fluorescing under ultraviolet light, reminders that darkness here is active, not restful. In the context of this journey, the Namib represents endurance as a boundary, not a place that rejects life, but one that filters it. Only organisms that adapt precisely survive. Nothing thrives by excess, nothing grows quickly. Everything is optimized for scarcity, patience, and restraint. The desert does not challenge visitors with spectacle or sudden violence. It erodes through exposure, through time, through the steady removal of comfort. The Namib does not ask how long you can endure. It already knows the answer, because this landscape was ancient before humans appeared, and it will remain long after adaptation is no longer possible for us. Here, the boundary is not survival, it is relevance. This journey was never about reaching places. It was about recognizing where access ends, across deserts that fill with water and then erase it, beneath ice that hides moving rivers, above depths no light can touch, and within landscapes that leak heat, poison, or silence. One pattern repeats. Earth does not exist for arrival. It exists through limits. Each location revealed a different boundary: time, depth, chemistry, altitude, heat, instability. None of these places asked to be conquered. They allowed presence only briefly, conditionally, and often at a cost. Beauty here was not invitation, it was consequence, a byproduct of pressure, age, fracture, and adaptation operating far beyond human scale. What makes these places feel unreal is not how they look, but how they behave. They withdraw, they resist, they continue, whether observed or not. In the end, exploration is not measured by distance traveled, but by understanding gained. By knowing when to stop, when to retreat, and when to accept that observation is the only permission granted. Earth does not promise safety, it offers clarity. These landscapes draw lines not to challenge ambition, but to remind us of proportion. We are visitors in systems that do not adjust for us. And the most important discovery is this: the planet's greatest wonders are not destinations to reach, but boundaries that define where humanity ends.